Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here again today on this Astrology, Human Design and Gene Keys channel with you. And today I wanted to make a human design video talking about the open centers or the undefined centers in the human design body graph and what that's all about, because there's been a lot of questions coming in about like, what does it mean when my center is open or undefined and what do I do with it? Okay, so first I want to clarify what it means to have an open or undefined center. Open centers in your body graph, you will see that they are white with no gates colored in. So the numbers inside those open centers, none of them will have like a circle around it depending on which program you use, and that circle is like colored in. That's open. That's called an open center. It means that it's completely white and there's no activated gates. An undefined center in human design is when the center is white, but you may have a few gates active or colored in. That's called an undefined center. So that's the difference in terms of the way that's going to look in your body graph. What it really means is that both open and undefined centers means that you have inconsistent access to that energy center. And this means that some days you may not have access to that energy center at all. Some days it may be very hyperactive for whatever reason that may be. It could be because of certain transits. It could be because you're around certain people that day or you've picked up some of their energies and they activated that center within you. But it could also mean that there's no consistent way in which you use that center, meaning you use the gates in that center or possible potential channels that's coming out from that center, meaning that let's say that you have an undefined root, right? Some days you may be using that root through the gate 19, some days you may be using that route through gate 52, some days you may be using it through gate 38, depending on transits or the people that you're coming into contact with. That's the inconsistency of that. And so it doesn't mean that you don't have that energy, because you do have it. You have that channel in your body graph anyways. We all have the same 9 centers, sorry, did I say channel? Centers. We all have the same 9 centers in our body graph. So you have it, but it's just not going to be consistent. When in human design, you'll see that they'll say that these open or undefined centers are not self. Not self means that you try to be attached to one way of using that energy because of any particular reason, that you try to just use the channel like you have a consistent access to it and like you have a consistent way of using it. So if you have that open or undefined root, right? Maybe you are influenced by something in your environment and you're trying to use gate 19 every single day. You're trying to use the root like you have 19 meets with 49. So you may try to use channel 1949 every single day like you have access to that every day, but you don't. And so what you end up doing is that you end up like burnout or in fatigue or tiredness or resentments with regards to like not using your energy in alignment with what your body has the energy for. Today I want to focus on the open or undefined centers with regards to relationships, because that's really how you're impacted with these open centers. Like if you have an open root and you're with somebody who has a defined root, you're really much impacted by their defined root. That's where the conditioning, the not self, is coming in. It's through a relating with another. So these, activated gates in a undefined center. Okay, so let's say for example you look at the root and you have a 19 colored in, but the root itself is not colored in. That gate 19, it's going to be called a shadow self within you, because that gate 19 is going to be like you're going to learn how to work and use that gate through relating with another person. Especially if another person has a defined root, you're going to be like, how do I use 19? How does it really work? You're going to gain wisdom from that over time, of course. But I want to go into this a little bit deeper, and I want you to notice if you have any gates in your undefined centers, activated gates, that are your unconscious Venus or your unconscious moon. So it's the design moon or design Venus. That's unconscious moon, unconscious Venus, because in the gene keys, your unconscious moon is your attraction field. And in the gene keys, your unconscious Venus is your SQ, which is your love point. So the love point and the attraction is going to be something that we are using in relationships, right? So for example, if that undefined root person has gate 19, and that gate 19 happens to be their unconscious moon, their design moon, so it's the attraction field. Whenever they come into a relationship with another person, and they're going to be drawn to people who have a defined root, because their 19 is attracting that to them, so they can learn how to use that shadow part of them. There's going to be this projection, and it's like you're holding a mirror, and you're going to see quite clearly what the other person is trying to activate within you with regards to that gate, and then you're going to be learning to work with it so that you can be yourself again. Okay, so now I want to go into the different centers. So we're going to start with the root center. So if you have a undefined or open root, the root center is a motor center, and it gives pressure, adrenal pressure, to do something that brings you sense of security, like making money, like, you know, having a job, having a career, building a home, things that bring you security. There's a lot of pressure there, adrenaline energy there even to do that. People who have an undefined root or open root are generally going to feel rushed into doing something that maybe they don't have to really be rushed into doing it. Like, you could be somebody who, let's say you have an appointment at 10 a.m. in the morning, but you were waking up, getting ready, everything prepared, you've packed everything to your car at 9 o'clock because and it's not because you don't have a sense of timing. Timing is with the spleen. It's because you feel that there's this pressure to do things as quickly as possible. And there's almost like no groundedness, less of like this common sense groundedness factor that you could have just finished everything by 9:45 instead of 9. And you can still drive 10 minutes to that appointment and be there 5 minutes before time, for example. You may seek adrenaline outside of yourself inconsistently. So when you're in a relationship, you may find yourself wanting to, suddenly have this adrenaline pressure to do something with that person that uses up your adrenaline real quickly. But it may not really be your own pace, shall we say. Eating chocolates, doing extreme sports, for example, are an activation of an undefined root. And of course, if you have a defined root, you can also be into extreme sports and eating chocolate and things that really pump up your adrenaline. But when you have an undefined root, you could be excessively doing this. So you may have to be a little bit more cautious or careful or stay grounded. In reality, shall we say, in reality almost. And so some questions that I'd like to consider that you ask yourself through relating with another person when you have an undefined or open root is, have you been in a relationship in the past where you feel pressured to rush into a commitment or a relationship with that person? And when you got into that relationship, did you feel stressed out by the relationship? Because yes, I also forgot to mention that the root is also the center of stress. So when you have an undefined or open root, when you're alone, really you can be quite just flowy, right? You don't have internal stress really, but the stress that you may be feeling could be coming from pressure outside of yourself to do something, like pressure to rush into a relationship, pressure to move in with someone, and then you get stressed out from that. So another question would be, what then would be your real pacing with regards to in relating with another person? What would your real pacing be like? And a really good way to get in touch with, what your real pacing might be so that you don't do something to relieve the pressure or relieve the stress that's coming in, is to get into exercises that I would call like flow meditation. So it's not sitting still meditation, but it's also not like excessive exercise. So for example, yoga, tai chi, or qi gong, these are slower moving. They're meditative, you're in meditative state, but you're still moving. So you have that sense of groundedness within you, but you also, and you don't have to rush, but you get to go with your natural flow. Because I like to look at people who have defined root as being like a tree, and the people who have defined roots are the root of the tree. They're very grounded, they're very stable and solid. But if you have an undefined or open root, you're like the leaves of the tree. So the way that you're gonna find grounding in yourself and in the world is to flow with circumstances, flow with situations that come, and not try to be like a root of a tree, like the people who have a defined root, not try to like do so much to create stability and security, because stability and security for you is coming from you flowing with life. That's when you feel really good. The other thing I'd like you to notice if you have an open or undefined root is that when you're around a particular people, especially it's like your partner, do you buzz around like a little bumblebee? Because you know, you have open undefined root, you can tend to do that around people. Like you can feel like you have to be doing something all the time around them. You have to be trying to make other people get security or trying to give this relationship security, so you're doing that and you're doing this, so that eventually you'll be free of the pressure to do. But the things that you're not going to, because there's still going to be people around you who have that defined root, and you're gonna, the moment you release one pressure, you're gonna have more pressure to try to release, and it's not gonna really end. So stay grounded. And sometimes this is like common sense with regards to how much do you really have to be doing things as well. So yes, and the gift, the wisdom that's going to come from an open or undefined root when you finally worked with it, is that you can be very gifted with the flow meditation practices that I've previously taught you. You can be very gifted with helping other people relieve their stress. Like when the defined root people are like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out about this and this in my life, you can be kind of like, hey, chill out, man, chill out. Just take a deep breath, sometimes deep breathing. And in your presence, other people can feel like calmer, grounded, and not stressed in your presence. Let's talk about the sacral next. So if you have an undefined or open sacral, this means that you're going to be a projector. So this means that you're going to have to either be a projector, a manifestor, or a reflector. Generators and manifesting generators, sorry about the noise, it's the construction next door again. Yes, generators and manifesting generators are going to naturally have a defined sacral. So when you have an undefined sacral, you are going to be influenced by other people's workforce energy, their life force energy, and their sexual energy. And so the first thing I would like to discuss is, let's do the sexual energy first. If you have the center undefined or open, when you're in a relationship with another person, I'd like you to notice how the sex went. Because what could happen is that you could feel like you're taking on your partner's sexual preferences. Yes, noticing if there was just something that was going on in the bedroom that maybe wasn't quite right there. So most of the time, this can happen if you're with another generator, with a generator type. Because generator types are going to have a more consistency with regards to their sexual appetite, their sexual energy. And they may, you know, when they're on it, they're on it. And you may not be. When you're on it, they may not be. Because you don't have a consistent turning on point mostly, let's say. If you have the center undefined or open. And so there may be like something mismatched going on there, but this is like a wisdom for you to, I feel, know so much with regards to sexuality, experiment so much, and explore so much, that when you are in an intimate relationship with another, you really get into the other person's core when it comes to their sexuality. Like you really learn so much about the other person's sexuality that you can be very wise about that. But then again, it's like, how do you insert now your own inconsistent style of sexual expression or sexual needs in that relationship? It can only come when you really begin to learn what it is that you're all about with regards to sexuality. Do you need to switch it up between spiritual sexual experiences like tantra and something that's a little bit more animalistic and raw and just kind of doing it? Like, maybe you need a little bit of a variety of different things in the bedroom, and that, you know, communication or that knowing, that understanding needs to be communicated with a particular partner, especially if they're generator types, so that it works between the both of you. Yes, it's like reclaiming what's yours again with regards to things in the bedroom, but knowing that you're not going to have just one thing or one expression, one style. You're going to have various different styles and expressions with regards to that. When it comes to work, of course, if you are not a generator type, you have this undefined or open, you're not going to be a generator type. So you got to get yourself out of the daily grind, the 9 to 5 grind. And the best way to notice this is, when are you waking up with an alarm? When are you drinking too much coffee? And of course, I like to drink coffee. I mean, I'm a projector, so I don't have a defined sacral. I like to drink coffee 1 cup in the morning. And that's what I want to limit it to. If I start drinking more than that, I know that I'm not working in my energy alignment with regards to my own sacral energy anymore. And a really good way to know this is to be alone from time to time. Like, if you could, you know, with regards to other things in your life, take a year off, a 2-year off from the daily grind of work and pursue something that you, when you're not waking up with an alarm, when you're not over drinking coffee, what do you really want to do at that moment? What really sparks your passion, your creativity, your curiosity, your need to study? Do that thing, and do it only when you have energy to do it without external stimulation on your internal energy, because that's just not healthy. And another thing I notice when you have this open or undefined sacral is that when you feel like you've had enough rest, you probably need more. So let's say that you took a nap in the middle of the day and you took a 1-hour nap and you still wake up feeling kind of groggy and like you're just gonna plow on through. You probably need more rest. And you're like, okay, I have enough rest, it's 1 hour. You probably need a little bit more. And sleeping alone is something that in human design you see it's recommended a lot. So this doesn't mean that you have to sleep alone every night, but maybe once a week or once a month or once every 2 months. It's really highly recommended that people who don't have an undefined or open sacral do sleep alone to recharge, to get rid of the generator energy that's gonna cause you to not have good sleep. Because when you're sleeping next to a generator, if you're in a relationship with a generator and you're sleeping together, when they're sleeping, their motor is still there, it's still on, it's just not conscious of that they need to be using it, but it's still there and you're still picking that up as you sleep. And that means that you don't really get to rest because your sacral is still picking up other people's energy. So opening up that line of communication with a understanding partner is super important if your partner is a generator type. So yes, get out of the daily grind and find a working environment or schedule that really works for you, because you can reach a burnout at some point in your life, whether that's in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and your health can really be damaged if you are overworking your sacral energy. It's about knowing when enough is enough, when to rest. And you're not going to be like, you're not going to have a typical rest to most people, I feel like especially for me, I work in the mornings. In the afternoons, I'm tired. I generally rest in the afternoons. And then I find that towards the evening and sometimes at night, I have energy again. So I do a little bit more work in the evening and at night. But then I've had that rest in the afternoon when it's like I have spurts of energy in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'm down, and then at night I have a little bit more energy, but then I want to rest. You want to make sure that you're resting before you actually go to sleep as well, that you're horizontally lying down. That's the best way to get rid of excess energy, is horizontally lying down before you sleep. There's a real gift here with the open or undefined sacral. Also, when it comes to being wise about energy use, being wise about what other people's energies are made for in the world, and how they can, like, helping guide other people with regards to their career and their work. That's a real gift here. And that's why if you are a projector type with an open or undefined sacral, you can really offer some wonderful insights into your friends, your partners, other people's work, like what their energy level, their aura could really be of service or useful for in the world. Okay, so now we're going to move to the solar plexus. That's what I have down there in my notes. My notes there is the solar plexus. So if you have an open or undefined solar plexus is the center of emotions. So this is first of all going to mean that you're not going to have a consistent emotional wave inside of you. That emotional tide that naturally rises and flows with people who have a defined solar plexus is not going to be there. So you're going to be calmer, you're going to be cooler, calm, cool, collected when you're alone. And then you get hit by something like the transits or other people coming into your space or connecting with other people, movies, TVs, media, and then your solar plexus gets hit and then you start to feel things. And so when you're feeling something with an open solar plexus, just know that it probably isn't your own emotions and feelings. You're picking up somewhere else. So that makes you very empathetic to other people's feelings. There's a real gift here for being able to offer emotional healing to others. So there's a real gift here for emotional healing. You can take in other people's emotions and feelings, let it pass through you like a vessel. And then they get to almost like emotionally release around you, and you don't even have to identify with those emotions and feelings and take it on. But the not self or the conditioning comes when you think that other people's emotions are yours and you identify with it, and then you don't allow that emotional healing space to happen. So they become very emotional. You pick up that emotion, you get emotional back, and the two of you are in this emotional kind of mess together. When the thing is that you are the one who can really hold space for healing there, if you're using this gift correctly. And so some questions I'd like you to consider when in relationships with another is that, have you been or are you in a relationship where you are avoiding confrontation, avoiding the harder conversations that needs to happen in a relationship because you don't want the other party to feel bad, or you want them to just feel better, so you don't want to have the harder conversations that needs to happen and getting everything out on the table and being completely honest emotionally. So that's something to consider there, because when you are having the harder conversations, right, your partner, if they have a defined emotional solar plexus, or maybe in this relationship you come together with somebody who has an undefined emotional solar plexus, and the relationship, the emotional solar plexus gets activated, is that when you're bringing up harder conversations, if they're having emotional reactions, right, and you identify with that immediately and you think that you're feeling it and it must be you, then you're not going to want to have that conversation. And then there's going to be some like emotional dishonesty happening there, which can cause resentments over time. But if you just hold that space and know that your partner's going to feel something, but it's their feeling, you can be a vessel absorbing that and then letting that go for them. And then you're going to be calm and collected yourself. That allows that space of open relating that's not messy, emotionally messy, to happen in a relationship. Another thing to consider is that, are you or have you been invalidating your partner's feelings and emotions rather than empathizing with it? So that's the same kind of like idea, is that if your partner says that, I feel unappreciated in this relationship, and you invalidate that by saying, well, I appreciate you, sweetie. I appreciate you all the time. You see, I show you all the time that I love you. You're invalidating it, and you're not empathizing with their partner. So what you may consider doing is, you may be the one who can really feel them. You may not need to say anything. You can give them a hug. You can say, oh, I really feel you. Oh. And you're gonna that emotion, like that vessel, right away, and then you can let that go for them. There's like a little bit of like a magic there that can happen here. So use your gift rather than falling into the shadow or the not self or the conditioned state of the open emotional solar plexus. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is the spleen. So if you have an open spleen or undefined spleen, the spleen is the center of intuition, intuitively knowing what's good for you, what's healthy for you, and what's not. Letting things go when they're no longer healthy or good for you. So if you have the center open or undefined, I'd like you to consider, what is it in your past relationships that may have caused you physical, mental, or emotional harm or danger that you were not aware of until it was too late, or that you still hang on to that, it could even be like abusive or toxic relationship until it was just like you had to run for it. And how long did you really stay? And also with regards to your habits, food, health, your environment, the cleanliness of your environment even, is there something there that you are not changing or you are holding on to that you may know, or there may be a sense that it's just not good for you or not healthy for you? Like some kind of food that you continue to eat that you know it's just not healthy for you because you can see that there's, your body doesn't feel right. Or maybe it's with regards to your gestures, the way that you sit, the way that you work, that's causing you pain or tension in your back, but you're still doing it even though there's this sense that something has to be changed there. So that's what you may consider if you have an open or undefined spleen. Another question I would like to ask is, if you had no fear, what in the world would you really do? Because this center and the different gates in the spleen have to do with our fears. And so if you have it completely open, or you just have like a few gates in there, it's undefined, it's most likely that you're quite a fearless person and you are not doing something in your life because there's other people's fears coming in and you're identifying with that. Maybe it's a collective fear and you're identifying with it and you're preventing yourself from doing something that could be good for you. Whether that means you should be letting go of something or you should be pursuing something. So an example of this would be like, let's say that you are stuck in an unhealthy relationship, but if you have to break this relationship off, you may feel like you're going to be rejected with, let's say your community is going to reject you, your family is going to reject you because they like this person. So now you're taking on the fears of other people, the fears that, they have fears about relationships not lasting, relationships not enduring, that being alone is being alone is not a great thing to be, that you need to be in partnership. And there are other people's fears, but you're holding on to something in your own life because you're taking on their fears. So you don't want to let that go, if that kind of makes sense. And so being able to ask yourself, if you had no fears, what would you really do? Working with your intuition is going to be super important because you're going to have an inconsistent access of your intuition and you're going to have various different ways of accessing your intuition. And so it's going to be really crucial to know how to detect when your intuitions are kicking in. So some of the things that you may want to consider, and this is wisdom from experience, is that when in your life have you felt this sense of paranoia? When you have paranoia, like something is not it's dangerous for you, or there's something off about certain situations, there probably have been experiences in your life that ignited your paranoia. What did that feel like in your body? Because that's going to tell you when something is off. If you get that feeling again in the present moment, in the present day, and you remember this is what's my paranoia in the past, now you know your intuition is working. Now you know that something is just not healthy for you. Versus, what does trust and calm feel like? When were you in a situation in your past where there was this great solid trust and calmness? Because that's going to also tell you in the present day, when that feeling hits again, that something is right for you and it's good for you. And so with an open or undefined spleen, you're going to be super intuitive when it comes to other people's fears. You're going to be like, when you're around people, let's say, who are displaying some toxic behavior, you're going to be able to know where that behavior is coming from. What are some of the fears that's going on underneath the surface? And this is coming from wisdom, so it's something that you've experienced in your own life over time. You're going to be able to have a pretty clear insight into that, so you can even offer healing, healings of traumas, healing of other people's fears and how they are blocking themselves in their lives because of fears. Super intuitive when it comes to that. And even health, like if you're really working with these gifts correctly, you're going to have a good intuition when it comes to detecting when something is wrong in another person with regards to their health, when something is not quite right there. Sometimes people who have an open or undefined spleen take on other people's ailments as well. But I've not really yet experienced this, so if you have, do comment below and let us know if you've somehow taken on other people's health issues, because I have a completely open spleen and I've never found myself taking on other people's ailments and issues, but maybe I did, but I don't know it, but I don't think so. But yes, that could be something there. Or you just may be very intuitive with knowing, like with regards to health, nutrition, diet, exercise, what's good, what's not, what's too much with regards to that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the open or undefined ego, will, or the heart center. So a lot of people are going to have the open heart, open ego, because only about 20% of the population have a defined ego and heart, because there's only a few gates in there. So there's not going to be a lot of, with regards to probability, that you would have this gate, this center defined. So this is the center of commitments, motivation, willpower. And so what I'd like you to consider, if you have an open heart, is that when in your past relationships, or with anything in the past really, jobs, careers, situations, did you make a commitment because you feel like you had to prove something to somebody? So this could be like you made a commitment, like to move in with a particular partner when it just, you didn't really feel that it was right for you yet, but you did it because you felt, it can either be a feeling of overpowered by somebody else, overpowered by somebody else's will, or it can even be like controlled by somebody else's will and not being able to stand up for that. Or it could be because of you needed to prove something, you felt like you needed to prove that you could commit, so you did commit. Yeah, this could be like a promising to have children, promising that you would get married, or promising that you may not be able to have followed up with. So it's super important here that, detecting what you really want and what you're doing. What's the difference in doing something that you really want and doing something that is going to, because you don't have, because there's a low self-esteem and you just want to prove that you could do it and prove that you are confident and prove that it can work. There's a difference between that. And being able to say no to commitments when it's just not right for you is going to be super important, and know that you'll still be loved, you'll still be capable in your own way, even if you say no, even if you can't do it all, you can't commit to something. Because there's going to be things that you can commit to, but it's not going to, it's not going to feel, it's not going to feel as, if you have a defined will, okay, it's going to feel like you got this arrow and you got a bow and arrow and you can shoot right at the goal. When you have an open or undefined will, it's not really going to feel like that. It's going to feel like you have a path, you have a journey, and you're going to go on that journey, but you're flexible to not commit when you don't feel like you should be on that journey anymore. You don't feel like you have to complete or finish that journey. Like, you have to allow yourself relaxation, allow yourself to relax and know that you can change the course if you want to. You don't have to be like that archer that just has to aim straight for the goal. That's not your style, shall we say. And when you're under less pressure to have to complete your commitment, sometimes that's when you can really commit. And do you find yourself comparing yourself to others? This is a theme here because this is a center of self-esteem as well. And that's why there's a lot of us in the world out there who have low self-esteem. And so comparing yourself to other people is going to feed into that low self-esteem in the first place. Do you feel like you're not enough, and then it's like a loop. You feel not enough, so you compare yourself to other people, and then you feel more like you're not enough, so you keep comparing, and it's this unhealthy loop that you could be going down. So know that your self-esteem, your sense of self, it doesn't have to come from you accomplishing anything, for you meeting up to any commitments. It's not coming from that. The sense of self is coming from you being yourself. And so if you are making a commitment and you're trying to follow through, that's not true for you, but you can follow through with it, you can be successful at it. Why should you have self-esteem? Because it's not you. You see what I mean? If you're doing something that's really truly you, but along that path you feel like you have to change, you have to adapt, you want to change your goal a little bit, but that's you. That's what you want. That is what's going to give you self-esteem. Not the illusion of the other one, not what other people are pressuring in the first case there. Yes, do you also do a lot to prove yourself to the world, like dress up so much, for example, to impress other people, try to make a lot of money to impress other people, try to be successful in a way that's not true for you to impress other people? What would ease look like in your life, and what would ease look like in your relationships? There's a lot of gates, maybe all of them actually, in the will center that is associated with money. Money is linked to a lot of like self-esteem and self-worth in our society nowadays, right? And if you have an open or undefined will center, I tell you, making money is so much easier than you think. And that goes out to 80% of the people in the world right now, is that making money is not as hard as you think. It can be as easy as pie if you just follow with your own commitments. Allow yourself to adapt your path, your goals, if you need to do it, because that could make money. Maybe you are going on this particular journey and you take a shortcut, you take a different route, and that route leads to more money, who knows, more abundance. But if you try to stick and be like that archer and just keep going at that same goal, you may not be making as much money as if you were feeling in that moment motivated to move or change your direction. Yes, really surrendering to life and allowing that surrender to happen and allowing more ease to happen in your life. You'll see that you have wisdom when it comes to making money the easier way. You have wisdom when it comes to using your will and not having the ego attached to that, because there can be a lot of people out there maybe with a defined ego or will center that are still operating with regards to their ego, and they feel like if they can just do something and make something happen in the world, they feel better, but it's feeding their ego. You're going to have quite a lot of wisdom into this, and you can even, reflect this back into that 20% of the population with a defined ego that, hey, sometimes you got to listen to the universe. The universe is there. You can trust in that journey, and you cannot use your will to make whatever you want to make happen in the world. It's just not possible. Nature has its own course as well. And so you can have this really good wisdom with regards to being one with nature, being one with the courses that the universe wants to take you, rather than pushing and trying to make things happen just through the sheer power of your will. So divine will. Divine will is something that you can be very wise at understanding. Okay, I kind of went on for a little bit there because I feel like 80% of the people would have this, so I just went on for a bit. Now let's look at the open G center, or the identity center. This center is associated with self-love, your identity, and also direction. I like to look at this particular center like it's a compass. So if you have it open or undefined, I would like you to consider, in your past or in your current relationship, did you ever feel like you lost yourself into the relationship? Meaning that, did you lose a sense of direction in your own life for the direction of your partner or for the direction of the relationship itself? Because you want so much to be loved. Because it's easier just to fit in that way. like to just glide along with other people's direction, it was easier to fit in and be loved for it. So I guess another question that kind of goes along with this would be, did you find yourself, or do you find yourself people pleasing a lot? Because what happens is that, yes, your identity is not going to be consistent when you have this particular center undefined, meaning that you can find yourself being different people around different people, and that's perfectly okay. You have to allow yourself to have that different identities to come up when you're around different people, but it has to come from a place of love. That's the G sentence, love, not a place of fear. Not coming from a place of fear that you're not going to belong, that you're not going to fit in, so you're going to change and adapt your identity to that. It has to come from a place of love, because what you can really do, your gift when you have the center open or undefined, is that you can reflect back to other people what their identity really looks like. And so let's say somebody has a defined G center and they're doing something in their life that's not really true for them. You can come in and it's like you're holding this mirror, and then they can see reflected in the mirror what their direction is. Are they going in the right direction for their life or not? Are they going in a direction of self-love for them or not? So therefore, and you can only do that when you are becoming their identity, when you're reflecting back to their identity, you're allowing yourself to be like a chameleon to reflect that back to them. But you're doing it from a place of love. You're doing it from a place of, I want the best for this person. So therefore, now I'm going to be open to seeing what their identity is all about, so they can have that reflection. Not coming from a place of like, okay, now I'm with this person who is in this way, so now I'm going to change myself to be in this way because I want to be like them, so we can belong and we can love each other and we're going to fit in. That's coming from a place of fear. Hope it's kind of making sense. Also, if you're not a reflector, but you have the center open, you're going to have some channels in your body graph. You're going to have other centers defined. Allow those channels or those other defined centers to show up in your relationships with another, and know that you will be loved for that. But you don't have to not use that channel or not use that center, the energies of that center, and be like the other person to belong and to be loved, because your individuality is very useful. It's going to be very important in the world. Why do we want to have a world where everybody's the same? We want to have a world where everybody gets to be themselves, right? And because this center is also representation of the soul, I'd like you to consider the idea that you are a soul wanderer. Like, you have to allow your soul to wander in this life. You have to travel, you have to meet different people, you have to be in different kinds of environment and see which one your compass is always kind of wanting to go to. And sometimes, and of course, there's not going to be one because it's open. So whichever one your compass feels it wants to go to in particular directions in your life, which one you feel your soul is calling towards because there's another soul that you'd like to connect with at particular moments of your life, allowing that to happen. That's so magical. The theories of the law of attraction is coming from the G and the identity center. Therefore, if you have trust that good things are going to happen in your life, and you trust in where the universe is guiding you towards, you're going to attract so much goodness into your life. But if you don't trust, you keep trying to change that or control that compass, then you may find that the universe is bringing too much change in your life or too much control into your life as well, with regards to the law of attraction. If you have an open throat or an undefined throat, this is the center of communication, but it's also the center of manifestation. Everything in the body graph, all the other centers in the body graph, they're trying to make its way up to the throat, to the external world, and make it happen, be heard, be voiced, connect with people. And so when you have an open or undefined throat, you will have an inconsistent way of manifesting in the world. You may have an inconsistent way of speaking. You can be really good with adjusting your voice, your speech to suit certain people. And the not self and the conditioning of it is coming when you're trying to be consistent. So this can look like notice if in your past relationships or in your current relationships, you were trying to speak all the time. You're trying to be like a defined throat person who like every day needs to talk or needs to communicate or needs to do something. Because for you, you know, some days maybe you just don't want to do anything. Maybe some days you just don't want to talk at all. So you have to allow that inconsistency to happen with regards to your natural energy flow. Or are you not speaking up at all in a particular relationship or partnerships, or maybe currently you are completely suppressing all the other energy centers in your body and you are not speaking, you're not sharing anything. Because it's all coming from attention. So the talking, you know, the speaking a lot, to be consistent, to be like people who have a defined throat, it can also come from a place of wanting to get the attention, needing to have the attention be on you, and you may overdo that. Or really like trying to avoid all the attention at all because you really don't trust in your own voice at all, and so you don't speak up. Patience is going to be key when you have an open, undefined throat. Patience with your communication, knowing when is the right time to speak. And I would like recommend that if you do have an open throat, like if you are wanting to work in like a field of communication, you can be very gifted with that, but you also may observe others, or you may take courses, you know, learning about communication, and then you're going to excel in that. Or singing, maybe you take courses with regards to singing, or you really practice singing and you can be very gifted with that. But you got to have that patience to not be too impulsive with your speech, meaning that it has to not come from a place of fear again. You must not speak for the purpose of getting attention, because that impulsivity that's going to come out as overwhelming for a lot of people. They're not going to want to listen. But you can speak impulsively. You can be like an impromptu speaker when it's coming from a place of service, when it's coming from a place of really having something inside of you that you want to share. Whether that's going to be heard or not, I don't care. I trust in my own opinions. I trust in my own expression. So therefore, it's not coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of sharing, of service. Another thing I'd like to ask you, if you have an open or undefined throat, is when you're in a relationship, do you find that your partner kind of takes over or you are letting your partner take over all the doings of the external world in that relationship? Meaning that, you know, maybe you have a dream of doing something in the world, but because it's easier to let your partner manifest, you fall into the position of just like, you know, maybe suppressing that dream to become like a housewife or a house husband, and that dream's not happening anymore because it's just easier to fall back and not try to manifest anything. What role do you play, shall we say? What role do you still play in the world even though you are with another person? And the last question I have for you is, how are you networking or collaborating with others when it comes to your own, you know, hopes and dreams in your life? Because with an open, you know, throat, you can be so gifted at networking with people, at speaking in a way where people kind of just are drawn to that, because you can adapt your voice to suit certain people. And when you do speak, you know, communication strategies with regards to pausing, intonation, your tone, for example, how are you using that? And how are you using your strategy in human design for the purpose of when you're communicating? Which means if you're a generator type or manifesting generator type, you can speak best or you communicate best when you have something to respond to. So therefore, it's always like good to have somebody to talk with, like to an audience, like group immersion programs where you have people asking questions and you get to respond. Or working with another person, like in a pair, where both of you get to respond to each other for generator types. For projector types, you know, how are you waiting for the invitation before you actually speak? But it's kind of different from the generator type because you can't just respond. You have to be asked the question. You know, with the generators, you can have two people going back and forth. They don't have to ask questions, but they're perceiving what needs to be responded in that moment. But for the projector types, it's like, are you being asked? Are you being invited? Are you being recognized for your ideas before you speak? For the reflector types, what does this moon cycle call for you? How does this moon cycle affect the way that you want to speak? And kind of getting in touch with that. Next, we're going to look at the open Ajna or the undefined Ajna. The Ajna is the center for conceptualization, and it can hold information in there. It's like conceptualizing, analyzing information. That's the Ajna. So, if you have an open or undefined Ajna, I would like to ask you this question. In your past relationships or in the present day, did you hold on to particular beliefs or mindset stubbornly for too long? So this can be something like the idea that marriage should last forever. So you are stuck with this idea, and then you are going to hold on to this idea in a marriage, even though you may see that, for example, your marriage is not going to last, or your relationship is not going to last, but the mainstream society may think that the duration of a relationship means success, and it doesn't. Relationship success is dependent on depth rather than duration. But because you're taking in the society's minds and the beliefs of other people, that's maybe not yours, because you don't have a consistent belief, by the way, and you don't have a consistent mindset about certain things if you have an open, undefined Ajna. So you're trying to be consistent, but you're taking on other people's thoughts, beliefs, their mindset. That's not true for your body. It's not true for who you are. So that can kind of be like what's going on there. Or it can even be a thought that maybe in your environment you're being imprinted with this thought that marriage is limitation. So you're going to hold on to this thought, and you're going to be like, I'm not going to get married ever, even though maybe a really compatible partner has proposed to you and you're just so compatible, but you're like, I still have this mind, I've been imprinted to think that marriage is limitation, so I'm not going to get married ever. And you get the idea there. Okay. You won't have one fixed way or one fixed belief, meaning that you cannot, with an open or undefined Ajna, put your mind, shall we say, your ability to conceptualize in situations in your life. You have to be in the present moment and in your body in every situation in your life. So you have to allow your body, you can play with concepts in the mind, that's fine, but it's your body and being in the present moment with the body that's going to tell you what needs to be done, what needs to be decided in certain situations in your life. And another thing I like to consider, and I've noticed this quite a lot with my friends who have an open Ajna, is that when you're having a conversation with someone, if you have an open or undefined Ajna, do you find yourself needing to respond to that person or that question really quickly to prove that you can conceptualize, to prove that you are smart or intelligent? Because your intelligence is not coming from your ability to conceptualize and hold information, analyze that information. Your intelligence is coming from your body. The body is a source of intelligence there. So this may look like, there's a concept being, let's say you're with somebody who has a defined Ajna, right? And they're firing concepts at you. And then you feel like you want to maybe have a response to that concept. And you're firing it right away from your Ajna. You're taking in the way they conceptualize. This is the conditioning, not self. You're taking the way they conceptualize how their Ajna works, and you're trying to do that with your Ajna, and then you're firing something back, and it's missed. And that person with the defined Ajna is like, that's not really what I'm talking about, or that's not really what I asked you, or that's not really if something is just missed with regards to conceptualization. It's because in that moment, what you could have done is you could have answered that person back with regards to what you feel in your body is going to be the right thing to say. What you feel in your throat, if you have throat defined, it's going to be the right thing to say. What is the wisdom of your intuition? Maybe it's a spleen that you've got defined, or what is your feeling if it's a solar plexus? What is that telling you? Or if it's the G, the identity center you have defined, what is your soul telling you in that moment? You need to be speaking from that and not from conceptualization. And then you can meet in that way. And so the mismatch of these, the ideas that's being fired is coming from your feeling like you need to prove that you are smart or intelligent, or you can conceptualize like that other person. But that's not, the Ajna has nothing to do with intelligence. If you have this open and undefined, scrap that idea out of the book that the Ajna is about intelligence. It is not. The body is more intelligent than the mind. The mind is great. The Ajna is great for forming concepts and for assimilating information, for holding information, for making something out of information, for visualizing certain ideas and for having certain visions and opinions. But that's not what intelligence is about. Some things that you can do to decondition the not self of your Ajna is going to be to meditate, to be in a place of complete silence and stillness, to get more in touch with your body, your sacral, your spleen, your solar plexus. Allow silence in your life or in the day. Allow space for silence. And have fun with different theories and different concepts that are coming your way without having to feel like you need to form any concept or having to analyze these concepts. Having fun with doing puzzles and games and things like that. That's really like a juicy spot for an open Ajna person. And your gift is gonna really come from, first of all, the real intelligence, which is the body, like really being intelligent because you're so in touch with the body. But also, being able to have long-lasting conversations with people because you are able to throw back and forth concepts and coming at those particular concepts with different perspectives and being very adaptable in that sense and not being stuck to certain beliefs or holding on to anything. Okay, last but not least, we're going to talk about the open crown or head setter. And a majority of people are also going to have an open crown or head setter because there's only 3 gates there. So this is the center of inspiration, and sometimes it's like divine inspiration. If you have this open or undefined, you may be under pressure. It's also a pressure center, just like the root. You may be under the pressure to answer unnecessary questions that are coming from the world that there may be no way of answering. They may be mysteries. They may be stuff regarding the occult. There may be stuff that science hasn't proven that really has no answer, but you're feeling the pressure to answer it. I'd like to ask you this question: where in your past, maybe current relationships, do you feel like you were under the pressure to make sense of, to know, or to understand the mysteries of your partner or the mysteries of the relationship? Were you somehow unnecessarily questioning the relationship or questioning your partner because you hoped that some answers would come out to things that may not have an answer for? For example, you may, let's say, ask your partner something about their mind. Like, why do you think like this about certain things? Or why do you think about this in a certain way? Why do you fantasize about these things? And your partner's going to be like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to answer that, but then you really feel like you need to make sense out of this. There has to be an answer. I got to make sense somehow. Yes, that's what I'm talking about there. So this can lead to a lot of shoulds in a relationship, because let's say you're with your family, right? And whether your parents have, or siblings have, an open crown, head center or not, let's say they begin to ask a question. Let's say it's a question about your relationship. Let's say they ask, oh, you're dating John? Let's say your mom asks you, oh, you're dating John. Are you sure you want to date John? And she doesn't explain why she's asked that question. And maybe she explains why she's asked that question. But days and months and years after that, you may still have that question in your head, and you're still asking yourself, should I date John? Should I not be dating John? And then now it becomes this should that is coming from you needing to answer other people's questions. So that's like how this kind of works there. And so getting rid of the shoulds and indulging in that. Okay, I'm gonna date John. I'm gonna see what happens when I date John. I'm gonna see what kind of mysteries are going to come out when I continue to date him, what I'm going to uncover, what I'm going to discover, what I'm going to be inspired by in this relationship. And allowing yourself to say that you just don't know something. Like sometimes there's just things that we don't know. Surrendering to what the divine is going to bring you. And knowing that, and saying to yourself, I can't just do something or make a decision when I can make sense of that thing. Sometimes I just have to make a decision because my body wants it. Whatever is your authority, you gotta make a decision from that, not the head or the crown, not only when it makes sense, not only when you understand it completely and fully. Do you need to make a decision or do you need to do something? That's when you allow mystery, romance, glamour to just happen in your life. You can, if you have an open or undefined Ajna, take inspiration from things outside of you. You can take inspiration from your relationships. Love can be your muse, romance, relationships. Somebody can be your muse, and you have to allow that to happen. The stars, spirituality can be, occults can become your muse and your inspiration and your fuel to play with it, to get creative with it. You can make art from the divine, for example. Art from spiritual art, for example. That's really your gift there, is that you can be inspired by so many things in your life and you can find so much magic and so much inspiration all around you. And that's what gives so much juice in life. I feel like this was a pretty long video, and I hope that it was somehow helpful for you guys. If you have anything to add, you can comment below. Which of your centers are open or undefined? Do comment below and share with us what your experiences have been, and if you have anything else to add that I maybe didn't mention in this video. Yes, I do astrology, human design, and gene key readings. You can find out more information on my website. I would be happy and excited to do one for you. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel, then please subscribe. If you already subscribed, thank you very much for coming along. And I'll see you very soon, beautiful souls. Bye.